To me, NFT is more like saying PDF, right? And if I showed you a PDF, they're like, okay, well, that's a digital paper. Like, what's the
Yeah.
use of that? Like, okay, I have a printout. I can fax stuff. You're like, I don't really like, okay, cool. I'll attach it to my email. Today, PDFs are used for concert tickets, airplane tickets, contracts, all kinds of things, right? Like, I would say PDFs are probably some of the most ubiquitous digital files in the world, and we use them for everything. You just needed some time. And I
Yeah.
think the same thing happens with NFTs, where I think as we go through time, people are going to use NFTs for more than just, hey, let me speculate on this picture, on this potential airdrop, or like this membership card. And we're starting to see some of those things.
Hi, friends. Welcome to another episode. Today's guest is Sergio Silva, also known as Sergito on social media. Sergio has a lot of experience on traditional finance after working for Barclays and Goldman Sachs. He also worked at the startup Fireblocks, which provides crypto services for crypto wallets, and currently started a new exciting project early in 2024 called Popset, which is a new on-chain social media application. We had a great conversation about crypto in general, about the future of Popset, and what he's excited and worried about in 2025 and beyond. Thanks again for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and the newsletter. Hello, Sergio. Thanks so much for joining. How are you today?
Hey, man, good. Merry Christmas, I guess. Happy to be
Yeah,
here talking to you today.
yeah. We are recording this during the last week of December, but I think the episode will be live in January. But yeah, where are you these days? Where are you spending the holidays?
So I'm in a town on the border of Texas and Mexico called Matamoros, which is where I was
Okay,
raised, and I will be actually flying to Mexico City right after this. I'm gonna go see my dad in Mexico
awesome.
City for a few days. Yeah.
That's great. So, my brother lives in Mexico City. He has been living in Mexico for half his life now. He's married to his wife is from Puebla.
Nice, nice, nice,
Yeah.
nice. Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful town, and Mexico City obviously is amazing. So I'm really excited to be there today. Might see some Web3 friends and artists as well. So really pumped
Yeah,
about that.
that's one of the questions I have. Maybe we can cover that later, like the influence, how you see the whole space evolving in Latin America, right? Because I know you held a couple of positions related to that market. But maybe let's start from a good place to start. Sergio, is how did you get involved in the space? How did you discover crypto, NFTs? Can you tell us?
Sure, it was really by luck. I spent 12 years on trading desks at Wall Street Bank. So I worked at Goldman Sachs and later at Barclays. And I was covering macros. So I was really, really involved with like foreign exchange and interest rates. And I had had some friends live for crypto, but I had never really paid attention because I really liked the markets that I was in. I really enjoyed that. So, there's only so much bandwidth that you have. It wasn't until late 2020 when a friend of mine sent me some stuff on DeFi and I started to read it, and honestly, did not make too much sense because it's very different from traditional finance, right? So I was using my framework, my traditional finance framework, to analyze like Uniswap and Curve, and it's like, wait, this doesn't really make a lot of sense. It takes you a little bit to really remove yourself from that, framework that you have, and then integrating these new concepts. And while I was doing that, I saw an article for G Money buying his CryptoPunk, his ape CryptoPunk for like $140,000, and I thought the world was going mad, people paying so much money for a JPEG. And yeah, it just caught my attention. It caught some interest. I used to write a morning note to clients and other people on Wall Street, and it was very different than your traditional overnight recap. I would highlight stuff like that, and I wrote about it. And I don't think I've ever had gotten so much, engagement, replies, people asking more, like what's going on. It just made me really, really curious. And I started doing some more work. I joined the Punks Discord, and then I just started falling down that rabbit hole. And I'm still, I think, falling down the rabbit hole. It's been a really, really cool experience over the last almost 4 years now.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, you come from the what we call the traditional finance, and what would you say motivated that leap? Because it's a big change, right? Coming from your investment background and then going all in into crypto. What were in your opinion, the main motivators to do that?
Yeah, so for me, it was actually not the financial side of things from Web3 that drew me in. It was the JPEGs, and really a combination of two things. One, I had seen a lot of really smart people from Wall Street, go to crypto and be really, really happy. So that obviously, a lot of green flags in that sense.
Mm.
But more personally, when I first started understanding the concept of NFTs, of this, digital property rights on the internet, which is really the value layer of our economy nowadays, it was just something that became really exciting and I couldn't stop thinking about it. And thus, it was just, I couldn't stop talking about crypto and NFTs at work and with clients and with everybody that I knew. So eventually I knew it was time to really go and mark that next chapter in my professional career within the crypto space to explore this and do something that I liked for a living, which I think it's just such a it's amazing. It's a privilege to be able to do that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, there is a lot of freedom in this space, a lot of innovation, right? There are new things happening every day. You mentioned earlier you had frameworks in your previous jobs, and when you try to apply that way of thinking or those methods into crypto, you mentioned Uniswap and maybe other protocols, NFTs. It wasn't ideal, or it wasn't effective. Can you tell us a bit about that? Why were traditional frameworks not effective when looking at crypto and NFTs? And is that still the case, in your opinion?
So I don't think that they were not effective in that sense. They just don't apply for the concepts, right? So for example, I worked on a desk that really handled the bulk of structured note products in the US. Barclays was the number one issuer of structured note products, and these are just financial investment vehicles that combine bonds and options, and they give you like a kicker on your return, and they go into like high net worth individuals and family offices. Now, in the whole world, there's maybe 15 banks that issue and trade these notes, which means there's maybe 45 people that we call them quants, very different than the
Yeah.
quants today on Twitter, but that really dedicate their life's work to creating these new products, to testing them, to putting them together and then distributing them, right? So think about that. There's 45, 50 people in the world that you need to go through to get access to those financial products.
Mm.
Whereas in DeFi, really, anybody that has an idea and the know-how can get a smart contract or a combination of them to come in and execute it. And then you can go and interact with that product, regardless of where you are, without any permission required, without having to open any KYC account or anything like that. Nobody's going to tell you this is not for you. With some of our products, we couldn't sell into pension funds. We couldn't sell into different types of clients. But with DeFi, it's just permissionless in that sense, and
Yeah.
that was very eye-opening. It told me like, hey, the smartest people in the world are eventually going to flock to this system because there's no restrictions as to the innovation that can be cultivated. But it's also so alien because the traditional finance system, there's a lot of guardrails, a lot of
Yeah.
regulation, and so that's why I was like, well, what happens if somebody steals it? I'm like, well, there's no recourse on blockchain. It's like, okay, so that's interesting.
Yeah.
But it was more in that sense, and you develop new frameworks for it.
Yeah, it's kind of a new game completely, right? And
Yep.
yeah, regulations, that's I mean, it of course makes things move faster, but then there are, there could be challenges, as you mentioned, right? Like security, and then yeah, individuals that don't have good intentions taking advantage of this, flexibility. But Sergio, as I was researching a bit for the interview, I came up in your LinkedIn profile, and I found that one of your roles, one of your previous positions was, I thought the title was very very interesting. It was resident NFT degen, right? For when you were at Fireblocks. Can you tell us a bit about that experience, what you were doing there, what that title meant, and how did you explain that to your colleagues and friends from maybe the past?
So just for context, Fireblocks is the largest provider of digital asset wallet infrastructure for companies, enterprises, all the big exchanges, all the big companies that use crypto, use the Fireblocks wallet ecosystem. A lot of retail doesn't know it because you don't interact directly with it, but like folks like Revolut and a lot of the exchanges have wallets secured by Fireblocks. So it's a pretty big company within the crypto space. But it was my first time working at a startup, right? I worked at Goldman and Barclays, where everything's so rigid. I was just mentioning, from the investment side, everything's guidelines and very rigid. Then I come to the startup, and I don't know, we were working out of a WeWork once every 2 weeks. We didn't really have an office.
Mm.
So I found a lot of freedom, and I just decided to give myself that title. It was not really my official title, but I was the one guy at the firm that was obsessed with NFTs and obsessed with degenning. And so I just gave it to myself, and such a small company at the time, nobody really cared. People thought it was funny. But yeah, I was officially building out the Latin America sales team. That's just
Right.
found so boring compared to resident teaching. One of the things I
Yeah.
learned in Wall Street that I applied to my early crypto career is like, it makes sense to brand yourself around things that make people like kind of like take a second look, like you did with a LinkedIn, right? Like it really, it's like, oh, what is this? This is different. It just makes you stop. And yeah, so I used it a couple times in my life, and that was one of them.
Nice. No, that makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned Latin America and you mentioned Fireblocks providing services kind of in the background for big corporations. So, I mean, I have two questions there. First, on Latin America, from your time at Fireblocks and now, do you see an evolution? Are there any challenges stopping, people from Latin America to enter the space? Do you think it's kind of similar to other regions in the world? What are your thoughts there when it comes to Latin American crypto in general?
Yeah, so Latin America is closer to Africa than it is to the US and Western Europe, right? I think the US consumer within crypto is more like discretionary income, right? You're buying JPEGs, you're flexing, you're investing extra capital, trying to make some money, you're degenning, you're gambling. Whereas Latin America and Africa both use crypto more so to help them move dollars around, right? Dollar is like the unofficial hard reserve currency for Latin Americans. I mean, where you come from, obviously the economy collapsed and people were trying to, store value, store wealth in anything that was not the local currency. There's a lot of currency controls in different countries, places like Colombia, Brazil, Chile, Peru. You really cannot exchange the local currency for currency abroad, right? You can exchange it locally, but you can't buy Brazilian reais in Europe. You can buy Mexican pesos in Europe, but not Brazilian reais, for example. And yeah, so access to dollars is tough. It's limited, and obviously with stable coins, that completely changes, or just Bitcoin, Ether, or any other cryptocurrency that people want to store value in. Less so for speculation, more so for just capital preservation, and then being able to transfer money back and forth across borders, right? Like we have a lot of immigrants in the States that or in Europe. We're both immigrants and sending money back home, which for me was actually one of the first eye-opening experiences. My family here in Mexico, my sister, my nieces, and I used to send them some funds whenever they wanted to buy something or just to help out. Doing so via a bank wire was expensive. It required me to go to the branch and sign stuff. Sometimes they would put a hold on my money, money that I worked my butt off to get, and they'll be like, "You can't send money to your mom." Like, what are you
Yeah.
talking about, right? 2 days or something like that. Whereas with crypto, we started sending DAI to their wallets here, and then they would use an exchange to off ramp. And so, what are kind of like answering the last part of your question? What are the limitations? I think it really depends on what you see as like crypto adoption. The countries here do have very good payment systems. In Mexico, it's called SPAY. In Brazil, it's called PIX, which are like local Venmos. But people still use PayPal, for example, and the like. So I think how do you increase adoption of more crypto payment rails? You do so by just increasing the ability for onboarding and off ramping. There's products like obviously we have local exchanges like Bitso. In Brazil, there's Mint, which was created by BTG. Actually, the team that founded that, they're good friends, and BTG is the largest Latin American investment bank. Colombia, the Bank Colombia, which is the largest bank there, is also building a bunch of products. So we're moving in that direction. Then there's also like upstarts, right? Like Bando, which is an ex Bitso engineer who's building like an on-ramp, off-ramp here in Mexico. So I think there's a lot of stuff that needs to be built out and that on-ramp, off-ramp, but we're moving in the right direction. And then hopefully once those things get better, then people will be doing more things on chain. But it's not really the focus, right? Like you think about it, just think about like Amibit. I love Mibits, right? Amibit
Yeah.
is what, zero point 0.6 Ether, which is about $2,000. That's about 40,000 Mexican pesos. That's like 1,000 hours of minimum wage. Like people are not buying that
Yeah.
here. And so it's a different consumer, it's a different user, but it's also like a lot of opportunity in that sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So a couple of weeks ago, Peter Schroeder, who leads marketing at Circle, was in the podcast, and we were chatting about this. How USDC, it's critical, especially in that corridor, Mexico US, as you mentioned, sending money back to Mexico. I don't remember the exact number, but I think it was like a 80 billion industry per year or something crazy. And basically, all these services charge a high fee, and it's not instant. It takes a lot of time. You have to be approved, as you said. So that use case alone is perfect for stables, right? And there are many more use cases like that when it comes to finance in Latin America. Not so much on the doing stuff on chain. That's another part of it, and maybe in the future will be more popular. Something that interests me is you've been kind of in the back of investing. You also mentioned Fireblocks. It's kind of running and providing services to institutions. But your latest project, so what you are working on right now, is Popset, which is basically doing stuff on chain, right? On chain social. Can you tell us what's Popset and what drive you to start this company?
Yeah, so the easiest way to think about Popset, it's a mobile app that allows you to mint any photo that you take with your camera, that you have in your camera roll, into an NFT on Solana. And so it's like a personal tokenization engine in your pocket. My partner Alex and I, we came up with this because we saw all the different ways in which people use crypto or desktop based. There really were not a lot of mobile applications last year, which is when we started Popset. Obviously, fast forward to today, and every single self-respecting company in the space, other than the exchanges that already had apps, are shipping apps. You have L2s like Blast, shipping apps. You have other NFT minting companies like Rodeo. You have exchanges like Magic Eden. So everybody really pushing into mobile because it just makes sense, right? Everybody has a cell phone in their pocket. Popset takes this, kind of like personal tokenization engine one step further, and it really seeks to unlock granularity in relationships on a social network. What does that mean? So if I post a picture of this podcast, for example, as a post and I make it an edition available for 24 hours, right? If I were to post the same thing on TikTok or Instagram, and let's say, I have somebody has, I don't have a lot of Instagram followers, but let's say, I get 200 likes on the post, right? I have no way of knowing out of those 200 people who has been liking the majority of my posts over the last 6 months to a year, 5 years, 10 years, and what kind of like depth of relationship I have with them. There's just likes on Facebook's databases. Whereas with Popset, my followers, friends, family, fans, they can collect the post as a token. And so as we go through time, I'm actually tokenizing my social graph, right? I
Right.
can go to my creator dashboard on Popset and see, hey, Carlos actually collected 95% of my posts over the last month, year, 10 years. What does that mean? That means Carlos probably one of my top followers, my top fans. And that gives me a lot of insight because one, I want to make sure that I track his engagement with my stuff. Maybe I start posting things in a different direction and he stops engaging with it. With just likes on Instagram, I can't see that, right? Once you get like more than 5 likes, it just says, this person and so many others
Yeah.
liked it. But with Popset, since they're tokens on chain, you can just see, oh, maybe Carlos stopped collecting. What happened?
Mm.
So that's one. Two, let's say I am trying to sell some merch, right? Like the Sergito merch for whatever reason, or think of people that have actual followings that they're trying to monetize, right? Upstart. Athletes, actors, performers, models, people that are just trying to supplement their income with social media or make a full living in social media, right? Um, I want to find the people that are my biggest fans because I will be able most likely to sell them stuff, right? They become my clients. And so the tokens they hold become like distribution endpoints
Yeah.
on a global platform. And then the last thing, and this is what really gets me excited, is that you can also set your post available for paid collecting. So my fans, instead of just collecting it for free, can, let's say, buy it for $2,
Mm.
$5. And so the idea here is allowing rising creators access to micropayment monetization, which today does not exist in Web2 social media. So you need about 25 to 40,000 followers on an Instagram or a TikTok account to really start monetizing, and you do so through brands and sponsorships and ads, right? You're like, hey, yeah, you love my content because I'm like this weird Mexican kid that posts wild takes on Twitter. But by the way, thank you to this coffee mug company for sponsoring this. Like, it's not really why people follow you,
Yeah.
right? Also, 60% of all creator payouts on Web2 social media are paid in cash. The rest are product
Yeah.
discounts and stuff like that. So it's really hard to make a living. Actually, only 4% of creators online on social media networks make more than $100,000 a year, which with inflation and everything today is obviously, at least in the
Yeah.
States, it's good money, but if only 6% are making it, the majority actually make like less than $5,000. So being able to tap into your support network as a rising creator where you don't need 25,000 followers to make a couple $100 to advertise a product. Let's say if I have 2,000 followers on Popset, and out of those 2,000, a quarter of them are really, really engaged. So 500 people that really like me and want to support me, and I say, hey, like I'm going to post this picture of this podcast with Calo and support me by collecting for $2, right? So now I've sold $252 editions, which is $500 of income that it's really, really hard to get on web to social media. So one, I leverage a smaller follower base early on, but this scales. If I get 100,000 followers on Popset and 20% of really engaged, then I have 20,000 people buying my $2 post, which is a $40,000 digital asset sale. It's just
Yeah.
like a lot of scalability, a lot of leverage here. And as I said at the beginning, I know I'm starting to rant. It's just really exciting to be able to use crypto rails and Web3 rails to empower creators to tap into their networks and hopefully, see them build long and successful careers.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Me as a creator, I have experienced some of the things you mentioned. For example, if you want to work with brands, or if you have a sponsor, or if whatever sort of deal you want to do with somebody else, it takes a lot of time. It takes logistics involved. You need to spend time with that in mind. You need to promote that you are offering a service, and most creators don't have that experience, and they want to focus on their content, right? And the way how Popset works is that they can collect, and basically doing what you like, you are earning a revenue stream, right? You can have other revenue streams as a creator if you want, but this is a way to monetize directly what you're creating, right? Like it's kind of works perfectly. And this is not possible, as you said, on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube and TikTok. You have to have a certain amount of views to get paid, but even then, to get paid well, you have to be like, have thousands or millions of views constantly. So it's really, really complicated. Um, so Sergio, that the idea, the concept it sounds great. I think it's ideal for many people. One question is, why on Solana? I know you are pretty active on the Ethereum community. You mentioned Meebits. Why Solana? Why you thought Solana was a good place to do this? I know Solana has many benefits, but I want to hear from you why that blockchain in particular.
Sure. So we actually started looking in the EVM world, right? So both Alex and I are pretty much, we came in through ETH NFTs, so we love EVM. Obviously, mainnet is too expensive for what we're trying to do, right? You can't have a $2 post cost $4 to mint. It just doesn't make any sense. Then we looked at ETH2s and ALT1s and Solana. Really stood out to us for a bunch of reasons. One, it's fast, really, really fast, and it's very inexpensive. So it's just a couple of pennies, if that. Sometimes it's less than a penny to mint stuff. The Solana builder community was also very resilient during the bear market, right? This is a blockchain that was pretty much tied at the waist against its own will, but to SBF and FTX, and then the price collapsed by 95%, and so many builders stuck around, and that's a green flag. Not only that, but they built a lot of really good infrastructure for projects to develop on Solana. And so we took advantage of that. People from like Metaplex with their NFT standards on Solana, people like Crossmint with all their wallet infrastructure, which actually runs on Fireblocks. That's how I met them. And then just overall, the Solana Foundation has done a really good job at helping builders come to the chain, helping builders really make that translation from EVM to SVM, and giving the resources that go beyond, there's a lot of places that give you a grant, and you've seen it with people that raise too much money that they don't know what to do with it. Sometimes money is not what you need as a builder. What you need is somebody to guide you, to help you, to open doors for you, to introduce you to do that. So shout out to Pedro from the Solana Foundation. He heads their like NFTs and metaverse stuff. He's just been, we feel like he's part of our team because he's always looking out for us, he's helping us. And we just didn't personally, feel the same way with other ecosystems. We never had that level of relationship building at the early stages. Obviously, the relationship with Solana grew really, really strong as we built more and more on it. We got invited to Breakpoint. We were just at their product showcase at Miami Basel. So it's just been a really, really good experience for us. Neither Alex nor I are technical founders. So having, for example, John Wong from the Solana Foundation available for calls, answer any questions, provide our engineers with the resources that they need. Again, the know-how. I think it's more important sometimes than the money. And yeah, that's a combination of things. We didn't really know we were going to get this extra value add at the beginning when we picked Solana, but now we're really happy looking back that we did.
Yeah, because when did you take this decision actually to build Popset on Solana? When was this? 2 years ago or 1 year? Or
No, it was so we raised our pre-seed in January. We closed it around then, and then we picked Solana right afterwards. We were
okay,
actually waiting to see a couple of the EIPs go through and the blobs on the EVML2s to
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
analyze speed and costs. And we still, decided to go with Solana. It just made a lot of sense.
yeah.
And yeah.
And I think it's been a great year for Solana, right? You mentioned the infrastructure they have built, but just in general, volume and there are different applications, consumer applications that are doing pretty well. I know Moonshot is one example, and some of their exchanges and their like Jupiter, for example, is so easy to use, and the Phantom Wallet. I know they have expanded now to different blockchains. So yeah, in general, Solana has had an amazing year, and probably it's a consequence of what you mentioned, right? The builders, the crypto community in general on that chain being resilient during the bear market, and now it's showing all that process, all that progress. What about challenges, Sergio? Because I know it's being a founder in the space is hard, and crypto is there are so many. It's like a roller coaster. You know that from your last 4 years. So what are some of the challenges that you have faced in this during that last year building Popset?
Yeah, so I think the biggest challenge for us to this day, we built a product for a non-Web3 audience. We really wanted to use the power of Web3 to enhance the Web2 social media content creation worlds. And obviously in Web3, the number one use case is speculation and kind of like trying to make a profit. As a user, to your point, you mentioned, right, if you think about the biggest consumer products on any blockchain, most people will name stuff that allows you to trade, to speculate, to gamble. And that's cool, right? That's part of human nature, and we see it all the time. I mean, governments use lotteries to fund educational programs, like really appealing to the degen nature that the human beings have. But for us, the challenge has been taking a product in an industry that is so focused on that and that has that image outside, right? When we talk about people and we mentioned NFTs are involved, they're like, oh, the Bored Apes, and we're like, no, no, this is very, very different. It's just kind of like translating the message and why it works. That's has just proven a little bit more difficult than we imagined because we see it so clearly, right? Once you sit down with that creator, you explain it to them, they're like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. This is awesome. It's like Instagram, it's Pinterest, but I can make money. But obviously, we need 100,000 creators on the app, not just a few. And that's been the biggest challenge. And just competing for attention too within the Web3 space, even for funding. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that is going to be able to be monetized next month, next quarter, where there's going to be a token, there's going to be this, there's going to be that. There's a lot of cash flowing through the system, and it's very mercenary capital. And when you build something that you're trying to kind of like still be there 10 years down the line, it's a different kind of attention that you're capturing. And so sometimes it is frustrating to see just random vaporware get funded. That's going to be we don't need the 20th decentralized exchange on this that alt
Yeah.
L2 like it's not going to go anywhere. But what's going to happen is people are going to go, they're going to go farm the token, they're going to get a couple $1,000s worth of an airdrop, and 6 months down the road that token is down 90%, the investors made some of their money back or some multiple, and the world moves on. So it's hard to compete with that. But we're doing it, we're excited, and we're looking forward to 2025 being really a banner year for Popset.
Sergio, when it comes to collectibles on Popset, those are NFTs, right? Those are digital collectibles. You are very experienced with NFTs. Do you see something happening over the next maybe 2 years? Could be a Popset, something you have designed, or something else, like a breakthrough on digital collectibles. So you see like a something that can spark that around the world, around to make it more popular. Do you see something like that can happen anytime soon, or expect
I
that?
think we just need time, right? So think about the evolution of the internet and digital file types. To me, NFT is more like saying PDF, right? If when PDF started, and I don't know who was it, maybe Adobe or whoever it was, right? It was a digital document that couldn't be edited. It's what's personal digital file. I think that's PDF stands for. And I don't know when it was created, but let's say it was like 1990, right? And if I showed you a PDF, they're like, okay, well, that's a digital paper. Like, what's the
Yeah.
use of that? Like, okay, I have a printout. I can fax stuff. You're like, I don't really like, okay, cool. I'll attach it to my email. And now you have like a scan or of this document. Today, PDFs are used for concert tickets, airplane tickets, contracts, all kinds of things, right? Like I would say PDFs are probably some of the most ubiquitous digital files in the world, and we use them for everything. You just needed some time. And
Yeah.
I think the same thing happens with NFTs, where I think it was I forget who it was, but digital ownership rights on the internet, right? We all live our world digitally. I mean, you are across the ocean, and we're speaking on this digital forum that you will put on a digital ecosystem and social network that reaches all digital. And
Yeah.
and I think as we go through time, people are going to use NFTs for more than just, hey, let me speculate on this picture, on this potential airdrop, or like this membership card. And we're starting to see some of those things. And I don't think people give, for example, Uniswap enough credit for turning LP positions in V3 into NFTs, right? Because that really just expands what NFTs can be. In our example, with Popset posts, yeah, they're NFTs in the sense that they're unique digital tokens, but for us, it's not even about the picture that's collected. It's more about the moment in time
Yeah.
that I chose to interact with that creator that I follow and support. And that's almost like a receipt for that digital interaction, a real world cookie in the digital realm, right? Like if I give you a like on Instagram or TikTok, I get nothing in return. All I
Yeah.
do is I get the algorithm to show me more of the same stuff.
Yeah.
But if I collect your post on Popset, all for free, no crypto required, there's no wallet setup, we abstracted all of that away, right? But if I collect your post, not only do I get a picture, and that's great, but I really get the ability to forever represent that I had that interaction online with
Right.
that creator. So in 100 years, I can look back, and if Solana is still running, which I think he'll be able to say, hey, 100 years ago, Sergio and Carlo had this online interaction. And
Right.
here's the receipt for it. It's immutable. Anybody can see it. It's permissionless. It's decentralized, which means it's not, nobody's just faking it. And that's the power of NFTs to me.
Right.
Beyond the hey, look at my CryptoPunk, look at my Meebit. It's a digital collectible. No, this is a digital receipt, which is how the internet works, right? Like that. Those are cookies. Like that's how the browsers know that you've been, on Amazon, that you used to buy whatever product. Like that's exactly how it works. It's all abstracted away on your browser. Nobody says, okay, well, now you have to accept cookies and the like. But when the internet started and cookies started getting placed in your browser, you didn't interact with them. Like you never thought about them. It was like magic. Like, oh my
Yeah.
God, like it remembers where I am. It remembers where I've been. It remembers what I like. It's the same thing with NFTs, right? Like
Yeah.
there are digital receipts for online engagement among many, many other things. So it's just going to take time, like everything.
As you said, it's kind of a proof of relation, right? It could be a relation between an artist and a fan. In our case, for example, this podcast would be a digital collectible on pods.media, which is a place to create podcast NFTs. And then the NFT has all the information, right? So some details. So host, Kalo, and then guess it's Sergio, right? People can look at the time when this was minted and when this conversation happened. So it's also another way, for me as a creator, NFTs are great for distribution, right? It's another way to kind of reach and expand my audience, right? So now I know, and I think this is something you just mentioned before with Popset, all the people that have collected the podcast NFTs, they are now part of my audience. And I can, hey, how big is my audience on chain? And I can look at the stats and how many people have collected. And I think this, will be even better in the future where we can look at stats on chain maybe and decentralize the stats and it's not fake. It's real stats that people can look in the blockchain. So these kind of things, I think, will get better over time. And as you said, with time, more people will join the space. There will be even more use cases and more applications. So yeah, that's quite exciting. What about Sergio? For new people, and maybe this is something as you have been building Popset and trying to onboard, as you said, people trying to facilitate, use the good things about Web3, but you are marketing it to Web2 people. So for those people that are entering the space and new people, what's some advice, in general from your time in the space from the last 4 years that you think is important to understand before going all in into crypto, NFTs, or whatever you're doing in Web3?
Yeah, I think you said it right there at the end, right? Understand. I don't think anybody in any field, crypto or anything in life, should really, if they have the possibility to learn about something before getting to do it, like why would you not take that option? And so obviously with crypto, there's always the FOMO of I'm gonna miss the pump. I'm gonna miss, yeah, if I wait a little longer, things are gonna run and I'm not gonna make as much money. I mean, I was just looking at one of my Telegram bot wallets that I use for like degenning stuff and stuff that I moved on Twitter and I bought it and like I'm down a couple $1,000s. I'm like, I forgot about those things. And I was like stuff that I rushed into and then I just, didn't really like study it, understand it. And I think, most of the people, yeah, you'll hear stories about people making money on pure luck. You bought the right thing at the right time. It went up 100x. Great. But the reality is the way to build wealth, the way to build a career. And again, not just crypto, but I would say, looking back at my life in almost every field is to study it. And we're in this incredible time where all you need is ChatGPT or Claude or Grok, whatever AI of choice, to really just sit there and educate yourself,
Mhm.
understand everything from now being very crypto specific, how the blockchain works. You'll be surprised at how many people don't understand how the blockchain works. And I get it. You don't need to understand it, but why wouldn't you? Right? Like it's amazing. It's so easy to understand. You just need to take the time to how wallets work, right? And understanding how the blockchain works, how the wallets actually work, gives you a leg up over, the potential for getting scammed or getting phished or losing your funds. So I would say number one is, you can start investing in crypto by investing your time in learning about crypto, right? If the economic side of the world is what interests you, well, then learn about Austrian economics and kind of like the philosophical stuff that really drove the early Bitcoiners and Satoshi Nakamoto to create Bitcoin and to develop that ecosystem. If you're more into like the programmable money kind of like angle, then look at what Ethereum built and why Vitalik and the early Ethereum founders went in the direction that they went. If you're more into kind of like high throughput, understanding how crypto can change consumer products, then yeah, look at Solana, look at the new blockchains that are coming in. How are they able to achieve such speeds compared to like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and what are the trade-offs? And I think really educating yourself will give you an advantage over, one, just the average person. And if you are here to make money, well, then, you want to be above average to make money. And then two, it would prepare that. Remember, we talked about the framework, right? Like DeFi, studying DeFi with a traditional finance framework was difficult. Like your paradigm is much different. And you really have to strip that away. So on the flip side, if you have a good framework for how blockchains work, how crypto works, how they develop, when you see that next L1, the next opportunity, the new DEX, the actual revolutionary stuff, right? How many DEXs have launched over the last few years? If you really understood the difference between that and something like a hyperliquid, and you farmed it, you made a lot of money. And I think people that really take the time to study the differences are the ones who are able to capture those opportunities. So it's not just pure dumb luck. It's actual people that know what they're doing. And how do you know what you're doing? You study.
You put the time in, right? Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's great advice. It's really well rounded. Sergio, two more things before we end up this great conversation. One is, where can people download Popset? How do they find the app? Is it mobile app only and it's in the app stores, or where can they find it?
Yeah, so we are in the Apple App Store and Google Play Store. We've been there for a few months. You just, Popset or Popset Mobile is the actual official name. We do have a web checkout product for when you as a creator post something for collection and your followers, unlike social Instagram and TikTok, don't have any Popset on their on their phone. They can just check out via a browser, and then we'll create a wallet in the back end whenever they log in to Pop. They're able to access their collection. So we've built some functionality around people that don't have Popset for collecting, but really it's a mobile native experience. We built it that way. It's a
Okay.
full app. It's not a PWA. So hopefully your viewers can go and check us out because I think it's really cool what we built.
Yeah, yeah, I tested it, and I like that you don't need crypto, right? It's kind of as you said, you are kind of taking advantage of the good stuff of Web3, but for a Web2 audience. And I really like that it's in on Solana. You know, I've been using different social products on ETH, and I want to kind of have that possibility on Solana as well. I think it's a kind of very different blockchain, but there are many exciting things happening there. Um, and last thing for 2025, Sergio, what are you excited and what are you worried about during this year? Which I think it's going to be an exciting year, but you've been around for one cycle from 4 years ago. So what should people be worried about and what should be excited about?
Yeah, I think worrying in crypto is probably energy not well spent, just because things move so fast and change so much. I do advocate for people kind of finding the thing they like the most and really, doubling down, tripling down, not investment wise, but just their
Mm.
time, right? Like this is a very nascent industry. This is an industry that's going to continue to grow. And obviously, there's a lot of variability due to the price swings, but the reality doesn't change over the long term kind of like trajectory. So I would invite people, myself, this is what I'm doing, right? I'm thinking of what is that excites me about what I've learned so far. How do I see that playing out in the future, and what can I do over the next 3, 6, 12 months to really turn myself more into kind of like an expert of sorts, right? Even if it's
Mhm.
just for myself. Because again, that's what's going to give you the edge as we go through time. Not really worried, but I obviously, think that the regulatory framework changing in the US is going to be a really good opportunity, but there's potential, pitfalls there. Obviously, as less regulation, gets kind of like advertised, it's going to continue. Crypto's full of scams and theft
Yeah.
and fraud. And so I hope that that doesn't overtake the narrative, right? There's so many people cheering against crypto. I don't know why. But yeah, I really hope that that doesn't become the norm because it is like the Wild West.
Yeah.
And you watch every Wild West movie, right? There's like the bad guys that sometimes are the good guys in the movies because they were the ones like, stealing and robbing banks and the cool dudes. But the reality is, I think we're here to build a better world. We're here to build a better internet. And so, yeah, I would just hope people are more discerning and who they support, the kind of projects they get involved. And, it's not everything's not about just making an extra dollar or two. I think there has to be some sort of internal moral compass that everybody kind of like guides. And I think over the long term, we're all going to be better off if that's what really drives the industry forward.
Awesome. Thanks, Sergio, for sharing your knowledge, your time, and best of luck in the future of Popset.
Appreciate you having me on here.